What's your least favorite phrase that some people like to use when discussing movies? I want 2 hours of my life back, or maybe what was the point of that movie? While those ones definitely suck, my least favorite and one that I see all the time that I just despise has to be This has become such an overused expression that it almost has no meaning at this point, but I'd argue that the opinion never had much merit to begin with. This isn't just a recent thing too, people have been saying this forever.
The death of original movies, an opinion piece.
Yeah, cause nothing screams originality like having to use an AI image to get your fucking point across. I like that there's this little prompt that says, a movie theater. Are you sure, man? I thought this was hell. People have been saying this for so long, and at no point in time would I have ever really considered it to be accurate. The whole argument falls apart as soon as you realize that it's just inherently not true. Not only do they still make original movies, they make them all the time, actually. People just don't go see them, and then they complain about how everything is the same now. And we've known for years that the theater experience has kind of been dying off in popularity. People have no basic manners in public now and just kind of ruin the experience for other people. The prices are insane. Whatever the reason may be, people just don't go anymore. But just this year alone, I have seen countless original movies that I feel are unique and exciting. I've even seen some that remind me why I love movies so much to begin with. Mickey 17 is one of the things that comes to mind for me when people say that there isn't original movies right now, because this exists and it makes them all look like idiots for saying that. And before anyone says it, I know Mickey 17 is technically an adaptation of a book, but a movie can still be a unique and exciting experience even if it's an adaptation of something else. Jaws is also based directly off a book, but you never hear somebody say that it's unoriginal or not one of the greatest movies of all time, because it is. Mickey 17 is still one of the most unique things to come out in theaters this year, despite having been a book beforehand. You also gotta remember that a lot of the people who went to see this movie didn't even read the book. This was a totally blind experience for a lot of people, and due to the amazing direction, I feel like it kind of stands on its own aside from the book. Another movie that came out this year that infinitely proves the art of filmmaking is not dead is Sinners. This movie is perfect, by the way. It's not overrated at all. If you're one of the people who've been saying that, just know you're fucking wrong. Overrated is also another overused term these days. It's just so interesting to me that a lot of people's response to not liking a movie everyone else does is to essentially say, you guys like this movie too much because I didn't like it. Hell, underrated is also an overused term now that I'm on the topic. I saw someone recently call Batman Beyond underrated. Hey man, no it isn't. Everybody likes that show. It's just old and not talked about as much anymore, but that doesn't mean people don't love it. The fuck? Not only is Sinners a genuine masterpiece, it's also one of the most exciting and unique experiences I've had watching a movie for quite a while. The way they use music to tell a story, how they use vampires to represent white colonialism, it all works so perfectly. And as a result, it's one of the most entertaining and beloved movies to come out this year. It's just from dusk till dawn. Sorry, excuse me? It's just from dusk till dawn. This movie isn't a fucking remake of From Dusk Till Dawn, okay? I'm so sick of middle-aged white dudes saying that shit. The only things that these movies have in common is that they're both about gangsters, they have a bar in the movie, and there's vampires at the end. That's it. That's literally it. Your characters aren't the same, the tones of the movies aren't the same, and the overall themes of the movie just aren't the same. Ryan Coogler wanted to make a movie about the importance of music and black communities and what it feels like to have someone tell you that they think they can control you and know what's best for you when they actually don't. And Tarantino wanted to make a fun action movie where he shoots vampires at George Clooney and sucks vodka off a woman's foot. These movies are not the same, but people just love to compare things anyway, which is fine, I get it. But you can't just say something is a remake of another movie just because of very tiny details like that. Some people also said that Mickey 17 was just Edge of Tomorrow because it's a sci-fi movie where the main character dies a bunch. Do these movies have literally anything else in common when it comes to tone, aesthetics, or even plot? You know, the things that make a fucking movie? Nope. They actually couldn't be more different from each other. but people still manage to compare them anyway. Mickey 17 is such a ripoff of Happy Death Day. And this brings me to my next point, the difference between copying and inspiration. People love to call every new movie a copy of an older one they've seen. When I first saw the trailer for Project Hail Mary and they were talking about how the sun was dying and Ryan Gosling has to go on a dangerous expedition in space in order to save it, oh my god. One of my first thoughts was, that's just the plot of Sunshine. Is this movie pretty much just Sunshine again? Then I watched the rest of the trailer and realized that I was kind of just being an asshole by assuming that. Because these movies have absolutely nothing in common aside from that. Sunshine is a dark and dramatic Danny Boyle and Alex Garland collaboration about a group of scientists on a suicide mission to save the sun so that the earth doesn't fucking freeze because the sun is dying or whatever. Project Hail Mary is a Phil Lord and Christopher Miller space comedy romp about a science teacher being forced to go on a solo mission that's completely out of his depth. These movies are not the same, and if anything, I think their premises being kind of similar was entirely just a coincidence. But if not, then they were probably just inspired by it, which is also fine. Pretty much every film you've ever seen, any movie that you really love was inspired by something else. And I don't just mean seeing a movie and then doing your own version of the same movie. No, I mean most writers and directors and artists as a whole are entirely made up of different things that influenced them over the course of their life. They take ideas and themes and messages that they resonate with and they mesh them together to create something entirely new. Nope, a wonderful horror blockbuster from a couple years ago directed by Jordan Peele, was heavily inspired by his love for Jaws. But the movie is so unique and different from Jaws that it never feels like a retread of the same ideas. Jordan Peele just wanted to instill the audience with that same feeling he felt watching Jaws for the first time, and I think he succeeded pretty well. Same goes with something like James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. He wanted to make a series that would give children of today the same feeling he had watching Star Wars as a kid, without ever feeling like it was just Star Wars again, but with Chris Pratt this time.
I think that, for me, Star Wars is really, it's the movie that allowed Guardians of the Galaxy to be Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that when I first started making Guardians of the Galaxy, I wasn't trying to make a movie that was like Star Wars, but I wanted to make a movie that made, kids and adults all over the world feel like Star Wars made me feel when I was a kid. It changed my life. And so I'm really happy to be a space opera in that tradition.
The only real thing that these movies have in common is that they're both fun, big-hearted space adventures with likable characters, but everything else, like the visuals, comedy, and character writing, couldn't be more different. Indiana Jones is often cited by many people and several video essays as a perfect example of an original blockbuster. And while I definitely agree that these movies are pretty perfect, they're also heavily inspired by other stuff like James Bond. Raiders of the Lost Ark came to be because Steven Spielberg wanted to make a James Bond movie but couldn't because he's American and the British had their little Horcruxes keeping us away from directing them at the time or whatever. So his friend George Lucas was like, why don't you make a movie about this character I came up with who's based on all these old pulp novels and stuff. And Steven was like, okay, and then they made a masterpiece. If you don't believe me about all that, just take it from Edgar Wright.
I have many favorite movies, but there are certain movies that I watched when I was thinking about being a director that really inspired me. And usually they were ones that were mind expanding in some way or really playing with the form that made me excited about what you could do in a film. Around the time that I decided I really wanted to be a filmmaker, I was always interested in film. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but around the time I decided filmmaking is what I want to do, there were two movies that I saw on VHS around that time. One was Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, and one was the Coen Brothers' Raising Arizona. Both released in the same year, in the USA, released on the same day, which is really crazy. Now, within those two movies are such an amazing Pandora's box of every single cinematic trick in the book that you feel with both movies that the directors are having such a blast at playing with the possibilities of what you could get away with in a film. I'll focus on those two movies because I feel like they encompass so much in the terms of like cinematic tricks and artistry in these wildly different films. Those were films that really inspired me and I thought, oh my God, how do you make a film like that? And the answer to that question is what leads you into being a filmmaker, is you want to figure out how the hell you make a film like that.
And even if you're not doing all that, sometimes taking a movie that you love and changing it to be something different can create something entirely new. The Driver, 1978, Drive, 2011, and another Edgar Wright movie, Baby Driver, from 2017, all share a pretty similar premise about a talented getaway driver getting mixed up in something they probably shouldn't have. But when you watch and compare all three of these movies, they couldn't be any more different. Yes, they all contain fun action scenes of cool car chases, but that's about it. Drive is a slow-paced character study on a criminal who doesn't want to be a criminal anymore. It asks the question of if it's actually possible to change and walk away from a life like this. Does one even deserve an escape at all? Meanwhile, Baby Driver is a vibrant action comedy about a young criminal falling in love and realizing he's more than just some getaway driver. And The Driver is also really good. I think. I haven't seen it. Both of these movies are great and were critically acclaimed upon release and kinda act as proof that you can do many different things with one simple idea, hence why there's been so many war movies or gangster dramas.
I don't believe in superhero fatigue. I think there's, mediocre movie fatigue. I think you can tell stories about anything. If you see the same gangster movie over and over, you're going to get so bored. But if you see different types of criminals doing different things, that are involved in different activities, different levels of morality, different styles, it's not going to ever get boring. And I think the same thing is true about superheroes. And if the only thing that we have to offer is one character showing up and seeing two characters together that we've never seen on screen before, that was really exciting when it first happened. Nobody cares anymore. This concept of superhero fatigue in one way is real because there have been a lot of superhero movies that maybe haven't been up to what they should have been or what the audience wanted. You see the same thing happening across the board with movies in general, that people are not making the movies that need to bring people into the cinemas. That's why something like Barbie works so well. Barbie did something differently than what other big movies like that did, and people went to the theater.
Thanks for your input, James Gunn, and also thanks for interrupting, asshole. But he's definitely right here. I won't linger on this topic too long because I know that's not really what this video is about, but comic books have been around for so damn long now. There's countless different studios that produce them, there's an endless onslaught of unique stories and characters. In just Marvel and DC alone, the potential for different stories you could tell on the big screen is damn near endless. So why do so many superhero movies look and feel the same? A lot of them are gray and are shot in very standard format, when realistically they should be some of the most vibrant and colorful movies on the market. There is no reason Marvel can't make more movies of visuals like this if they have this much money, but instead it's just easier to churn out slop, and for a while this worked, but predictable movies with bad effects just doesn't fly for the audience anymore, especially when we know what you're actually capable of. Just look at the Spider-Verse movies, they're visually stunning and showcase so many different art styles. Not only that, but they're easily some of the best animated kids movies on the market right now. They cover many heavy-hitting topics like self-worth, grief, and the pain of having to choose when you really wish that you could just do it all. These movies should be the standard for what superhero movies should be, and honestly they should be the standard for animated kids movies as well. Give us more shit like this instead of Secret Invasion or fucking Minions. The reason I'm even mentioning this at all is because the superhero genre is one of the biggest examples the no original movies crowd likes to use. They say everything now is a sequel, a remake, or just a superhero movie. They also say that there's way too many of them right now, and sure, they do tend to make a lot of superhero movies, way too many sometimes, but the existence of superhero movies and big franchises as a whole doesn't erase original ideas. Original movies are still being released all the time, you guys just aren't watching them for some reason. To support my point, I'll only be discussing movies that came out this year alone for the next segment. Let's take a look at one movie from this year that I think completely disproves the no original movies thing on its own. That movie is The Ballad of Wallis Island. Now I'm going to try to keep this segment as spoiler free as possible, as I genuinely think you should watch this if you haven't. The Ballad of Wallis Island is about a friendly, lonely man by the name of Charles Heath, who is played wonderfully by Tim Key, who was also in Mickey 17. Look at that. Charles, who's insanely rich due to winning the lottery twice, the only 2 times that he ever even played it. So with all that money, he traveled around a lot and eventually bought a house on a very nice and secluded island called Wallis Island. He decides to use his wealth to hire a musical artist by the name of Herb McGuire to perform a whole concert just for him to enjoy. Because Herb used to be in a band called McGuire more Mortimer with his ex-lover Nell Mortimer. And one of the coolest aspects of this movie is that most of the soundtrack was composed by these two themselves, as they actually made and performed a bunch of great songs for the movie, which is honestly amazing. It's a cute little movie filled to the brim with charm. It has this dry but charismatic sense of humor and has an insane amount of heart.
I think we might be back to square one, Herb.
Get it out. Get it out.
Oh, right, okay.
Quickly. You're boiling my phone.
Some of the characters we meet are deeply troubled by their past and have to learn the importance of letting go. Herb can't let go of the love that he once shared with his former bandmate Nell, and he's constantly being told that he's the worst by basically everybody around him. And Charles himself seems to have a very deep-rooted pain hidden behind this bubbly exterior that he presents. The movie is under 2 hours long, but it somehow makes you care about and understand all of these characters perfectly on their own. And this movie never once leaves the comfortable yet isolated place that is Wallis Island. But somehow it still feels like you were brought on some kind of journey. You can feel yourself getting more invested in the characters and the movie as it goes on. It's easily one of my favorite movies of the year. It's a silly comedy drama made by people who talk funny, but god damn it is it beautiful. And one of the craziest aspects of this whole movie that I just found out while editing is that this is actually a passion project that they've been wanting to make since 2007. Some of the people who are watching this video weren't even fucking alive yet, and they were trying to make this movie. That's what filmmaking is about. Passion, and then delivering on that passion no matter how long it takes you to get to do what you want to do. Movies like this are the reason I refuse to subscribe to the film is dead or there's no original movies anymore idea. This is one of the most fun and unique dramas I've seen in years, and it was made with nothing but a relatively small budget and a dream. And that was enough for this movie to comfortably make its way into the hearts of the audience and critics alike. It's crazy that a simple folk comedy has so much to say about loss and letting go of the past. I really wish I could talk about this more, but I also genuinely want people to watch this movie, and if I can even interest just one person, I'll be satisfied. Another movie I want to talk about from this year is Neighborhood Watch. This is an example of what I was discussing a few minutes ago, where you take a familiar format or idea and you try to make something new out of it. Neighborhood Watch is a crime thriller buddy comedy, I guess, about a schizophrenic man named Simon, played by Jack Quaid, who witnesses a woman being kidnapped. He doesn't think that the police are taking his problem very seriously, so he enlists the help of his neighbor, a washed-up security guard by the name of Ed, played wonderfully by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. This is a relatively simple movie with a familiar structure that could have easily just been a predictable, forgettable mess, but the lead characters and their chemistry is enough to make it feel special. Watching Ed go from a feeling of resentment to his strange neighbor Simon to one of compassion and understanding is just so satisfying and enjoyable to watch unfold. I also don't want to spoil this movie much, but there's one moment I can't help but talk about. Simon struggles a lot to maintain eye contact with people, like not just strangers, pretty much everyone. When he tries, the sounds and voices in his head tend to get louder, which can lead to him lashing out. This is established almost immediately in this movie, but later on, Eddie encourages Simon to keep making oh my fucking god, but later on, Ed encourages Simon to make eye contact, only to find out that he's pretty much incapable of it. So instead of immediately giving him shit for it like he would have earlier, he attempts to help him. He tells Simon to look someone in their eye for just 1 second, and then he can look away, but the next time he looks them in the eye, he should do it for 2 seconds, and then he can work his way up to 3 seconds and even 4 until he feels comfortable enough to maintain eye contact for the whole conversation. And as the movie goes on, we see this tactic actually kind of works. It's just very satisfying to see Simon slowly overcome his struggles. Of course, it's not like his schizophrenia magically goes away by the end of the movie, but he does enter a much brighter chapter in his life where he knows that people are okay with him being different and are willing to help him if he's willing to ask. He doesn't need to shut himself off or fight this battle on his own, and it's a very nice sentiment in my opinion. Now, of course, I'm not an expert on schizophrenia or anything, so I can't really speak to how accurate of a depiction this is, but I can say it still results in a very heartfelt and sincere message. This movie's trying to show that there's a lot of layers to schizophrenia and the people who have it, instead of painting it in a dark and scary light like so many films of the past have. And like I've said a few times already, this movie is technically made up of stuff we've already seen in a bunch of other movies before. We've seen comedic crime thrillers, we've seen the buddy cop formula, but it's what this movie does with those ideas that makes it feel so unique. It plays on your expectation, and for a movie like this, I think it works pretty well. So just to recap, we have a folk comedy that's one of the most unique and Fuck. So just to recap, we have a folk comedy that is one of the most unique and memorable movies I've seen all year, and then a crime thriller that uses familiar tropes and ideas to tell a new and original story. And those are far from the only ones to come out this year. Just to name some more examples, we got Sorry Baby, Black Bag, Caught Stealing, The Physician Scheme, Deep Cover, Sue from So, She Rides Shotgun, Late Shift, Ride Hard? How the fuck did this get in here? Okay, all these other movies are great, just not that one. And there's some that aren't even out yet while I'm recording this, like Rental Family, One Battle After Another, and Eternity, that all look like great movies. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna love or even like all of these movies. I just think that these help support my point that original movies are still being made constantly. Same thing with something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is probably one of the most original movies ever made in the history of cinema, and it was only like 3 years ago. You don't have to like this movie, of course, but regardless of how you feel personally about it, you can't deny that this is something original and the filmmakers are doing something different.
That's why something like Barbie works so well. Barbie did something differently than what other big movies like that did, and people went to the theater. And I wrote Margot the morning that came out. I said, thank you, for helping to keep theaters alive. I saw Greta Gerwig the other day. I was like, thanks. And I think there's a few filmmakers like that now. I think Matt Reeves is like that. He's a filmmaker that makes big pop movies, but they have soul and they're different. And whether you like his movies or not, that's not the important thing. He is doing something different. Being able to see those chances being taken on a big canvas is important. I want the cinema-going experience to continue. I want, my nephews and nieces and their children to be able to experience what I've been able to experience, going to a theater and seeing the magic of cinema.
Thanks again, James, but seriously, stop fucking interrupting me, alright, bud? But the thing that sucks so much about all of this is the fact that regardless of all these movies existing that you can easily find out about and go watch, people will still instead see something like Captain America Brave New World or Love Hurts and then tell me that movies suck now. I guess you can't convince everyone. Oh well, let's talk about sequels and remakes. I'm getting pretty fucking sick of hearing people say everything is a sequel or a remake now, as if these concepts are new things that just randomly appeared in the last 20 years or so. Sequels and remakes have been around for a while. Sequels and franchises don't erase original movies and IPs, they still get made as well. They also act like sequels weren't a major thing when they were younger. Rocky was a big deal when it came out and received 4 different sequels back in the 80s because of it, and another one later in 2006. Same with First Blood, another Stallone movie that was immensely popular at the time. They immediately decided to make it into a trilogy and even went on to make 2 different legacy sequels over the years. Star Wars was always planned to be a trilogy of films and then got another trilogy in the 90s and another one like 10 years ago. Christopher Reeve did 4 different Superman movies in the span of 4 years with a planned 5th one that only didn't come out because the 4th one didn't make enough money. It also got a legacy sequel in the early 2000s, Jesus Christ. Indiana Jones had a trilogy and 2 legacy sequels, and oh my god dude, James fucking Bond. They made so many of these goddamn movies, dude. There are 27 movies and only 5 of them have come out in the last 20 years. I could go on, there's plenty more examples. And remakes certainly aren't a new thing either. John Carpenter's The Thing, one of the most beloved horror movies ever made, is technically a remake of the 1951 movie The Thing from Another World. And guess what? It's honestly better than the fucking original. Now I know remakes sometimes tend to be unneeded or just bad, but they've also definitely had some hits before that might not be necessary or better than the original movies but are still good enough to stand on their own. I also don't think some people know the difference between a remake and reboot, which fair enough, I get it, they sound like the fucking same. But when they make a Superman movie with a different actor, director, and storyline, they didn't remake the other Superman movie. They did a new adaptation of the same source material. Edgar Wright is soon to release his new adaptation of Stephen King's novel, The Running Man. It looks amazing and it seems to be a more accurate depiction of the source material than the past iteration was, that's for fucking sure. Jesus, this movie was crazy. But if you pull up any trailer of this movie and look at the comments, it will not take you long to find some middle-aged dudes saying, Why are they remaking yet another classic? Why is everything a remake now? First of all, classic is a bit of a stretch. Second of all, it's not a fucking remake. This movie has absolutely nothing to do with the one from the 80s other than being based on the same book and sharing a name. That is it. The plots aren't even similar because the Running Man game in the novel is actually a nationwide manhunt, not some silly game where some dudes dress up in fucking spandex and fight with chainsaws. They just kind of made shit up for that movie and it worked at the time, but watching it now it comes off very dated and not like a very good representation of the book. Hence why the movie is even being made. I'm so excited for that movie though. On a real note, this shit's gonna be such a fun watch. And as for sequels, I genuinely don't see how these are a problem. Sometimes movies are just really good and have lots of sequel potential, like The Nice Guys. This is just here as an excuse for me to say that I'm still mad Nice Guys 2 isn't gonna happen. But also sequels have the potential to not only be good, but sometimes they're even better than their predecessors. The Empire Strikes Back, Spider-Man 2, Terminator 2, Aliens. They had a whole conversation in Scream 2 about how sequels can be great.
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck. No, come on, man. Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
It's bullshit generalization. Many sequels have surpassed their original.
Oh, yeah?
Speaking of which, Scream 2 is also a really good sequel. Would you look at that? And look, I get it. Many sequels have been bad in the past and just kind of ruined the first movie a little bit. But I think it's less of a problem with sequels themselves and more of an issue with some movies just don't need sequels while others can get them. It just makes sense to do sequels to something like Spider-Man because the source material has been around forever and there's so many possibilities for what you could do with this character. But something like Mean Girls 2 probably didn't need to happen, especially since they didn't even bother getting the original cast back. But all I'm saying is that sequels and reboots are fine in concept and can even work out pretty well if they're done correctly. And they definitely haven't replaced original movies, as I spent forever talking about, but don't worry because I only have one more thing to complain about. Expectations can be a very messy thing. You could expect to love a movie only to be horribly disappointed. You could expect a movie to be kind of bad only for it to be really good and actually a fun time. But these days it honestly feels like people don't want their expectations subverted at all, whether good or bad. It genuinely seems like people only like certain movies now if exactly what they expected to happen in that movie does. And I just can't resonate with that mindset. One of my favorite movies to come out this year is 28 Years Later. I think it's a wonderful story about loss and acceptance that's told in a very thrilling and beautiful way. Of course, I am extremely biased. The first movie is like my favorite of all time, but I would still feel this way regardless of if it wasn't. This entire movie was shot on iPhones using this crazy ass rig they made, and somehow it's one of the most visually stunning movies I've seen all year. The beautiful setting helps them tell an almost folk horror tale with a lot of heart. I genuinely think this is a masterpiece, and it's only the first movie of this new trilogy, which is gonna be so fucking good. I'm calling it now. Now, while I and a lot of others love this movie, there's a very loud group of people who didn't. They actually hated it even. Mostly because this movie takes risks and doesn't really care if everyone likes it or not. It's very clearly a passion project made for the creators themselves to enjoy, and by proxy the right audiences will also love it. This movie was one of the most hyped of the year, being a legacy sequel to one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and also the insanely viral marketing probably helped. It seems like a lot of people wanted a very familiar zombie narrative, something along the lines of The Last of Us, but this time with two random Scottish guys, I guess. But that's far from what they actually got, so many people got mad as fuck about this movie. They said it was weird and that it made no sense, which is also what they say about literally every horror movie that requires you to use your brain while watching it. This movie completely flipped my expectations on their head, and I love it more for that reason. I never knew what was going to happen next in this movie, which made it an exciting and intriguing watch. I genuinely don't understand why someone's immediate response to their expectations being subverted would be to get mad. You can't complain that no movies are original anymore and then complain when movies do something different and original. Do you want them to do that or not? To be honest, at this point, I'm not sure if a lot of people even like movies anymore. They also complain about the ending, even though it's clearly not the ending, more just the beginning of the next chapter, and honestly half of them wouldn't have said anything if it was relegated to a post-credit scene anyway. A lot of people also love to bring up the audience scores in movies like this and say, well, it only got a 60% on the audience score, and you can trust that one a lot more than the critic score. No, you can't. Are you serious? The audience score is honestly meaningless since literally anyone can make a review that could potentially affect a movie's score. Literally all you have to do is make an account on Rotten Tomatoes and then you can leave as many reviews and ratings as you want. And it don't even have to make fucking sense. I could just spout some nonsense like a lot of these guys do and it will affect the score of the movie. How is that fair? The audience score has been lower for some of the best movies to come out in the last couple years, so forgive me if I'm hesitant to trust them. Saying this is trustworthy is like saying the Letterboxd score is trustworthy. It just isn't. I know critics have a tendency to be a little off with their ratings sometimes, but I personally think the critic score is a decent enough basis to know if a movie's gonna be solid or not. I don't trust the exact score per se, but I kinda consider it in relation to how critics usually react to movies in this certain genre. If I see a horror movie get higher than 70%, I get a little excited because that means it's probably going to be a good movie, and we all know critics just don't really like to admit that horror movies can be good, hence why they're not at the Oscars.
Fortnite Battle Pass, I just shit out my ass.
So when they do like one, they'll be like, oh, okay, it's fine, I guess, 70%, which usually means that it's actually a lot better than that. I was originally going to do a whole segment for horror movies, but this has been dragged on for way too long, so I guess I'll do that as its own video some point down the line. Hopefully soon. In all, I made this overly ranty little video essay just because I love movies and I'm sick of people acting like it's a dead art form. I still personally go to the theater regularly and I don't have plans on stopping. Seeing movies today still brings me the same fun and exciting feeling it did being a kid in the theater watching something like Monsters University or whatever the fuck. The only reason I really made this video is because it kinda sucks to watch movies that I absolutely adore and help remind me why I love movies so much to begin with, only to go online afterwards and see people constantly regurgitating the same talking points I just spent the last 20 minutes responding to. I can't even watch a trailer for a movie I'm excited for without seeing some of the worst opinions ever or trying to see someone act smart and quote-unquote predict the plot of the movie only to be insanely off when the thing actually comes out. But I guess I'll wrap this up here. Sorry again if this seemed a little annoyed or less structured than my other videos. I haven't made a video essay in a couple years, but I also just kind of fucking went at it when I wrote this script. I needed to get all this stuff off my chest. The art of filmmaking is not dead. There are countless different ideas out there and talented people who are willing to bring them to life. I don't know why we as an audience have reached such a point of cynicism when it comes to how we view film. It seems like so many people just don't even like movies as an art form anymore, and as someone who loves them to death, that kind of fucking sucks. I've made this video, I've expressed my annoyance, and now I will just keep doing my thing and hope that movie discourse won't bother me this much in the future. But it probably will. Oh well.